Let me ask you something real. Are you really overwhelmed, or are you just unclear? Stress doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from doing too little of what matters, and most people are running around reacting to life instead of designing it. They're drowning in to-do lists, chasing urgency, constantly putting out fires, and they wonder why they can't breathe. Here's the truth. Stress is the absence of clarity. You don't need more time, you need more focus. That's where the RPM system comes in. R for results, P for purpose, M for massive action plan. Simple, right, but most people miss this. They make lists, long, boring, soul, draining to-do lists, pick up dry cleaning, answer emails, respond to that text, and they wonder why they're exhausted. Because they're managing tasks, not chasing outcomes. The first shift: stop asking what you need to do. Start asking, what do I want to create? That's your result. Not what to do, what to achieve. What outcome actually moves your life forward? What measurable result lights you up? Next, the purpose. Why does that result matter? What's the emotion behind it? What will it cost you if you don't make it happen? You don't need more discipline, you need more reasons. Purpose gives your action fuel. Without it, you'll procrastinate and call it burnout. Then comes the massive action plan, not a laundry list, not 20 things, just 3-5 powerful, aligned actions that get the result. Not busy work, not motion, progress. You want to end stress. You've got to trade reaction for intention. Get out of the fog. Stop running in 20 directions with no map. Start each day knowing exactly what result you want, why it lights you on fire, and the few key moves that make it real. Because when you control your focus, you control your life, and the RPM formula doesn't just reduce stress, it eliminates it. It gives you control, it gives you clarity, it gives you power. Stress doesn't survive when you live with a mission, not a task list. And when you live by design, not demand. The question is, are you ready to stop reacting and start creating? Stress is not about circumstance, it's about meaning. Two people can experience the exact same event and have completely different reactions. One feels panic, the other feels calm. One shuts down, the other steps up. Why? Because it's never the event that creates stress. It's the interpretation. It's the meaning you attach to it in the moment. Most people think they're stressed because of what's happening outside of them, the workload, the deadlines, the people, the pressure. But stress doesn't come from the outside. It comes from the inside. From the story you're telling yourself about what it means. You miss a deadline and one person says, I failed, I'm not good enough. Another says, this is feedback, time to adjust and go again. Same moment, different meaning, different emotional state. The meaning you choose determines your experience, and most people are not choosing, they're reacting. They're operating on autopilot, assigning old meanings from past wounds, from fear, from insecurity. They've trained themselves to see everything as a threat, as a weight, as a problem, but that pattern can be broken. The moment you decide to own the meaning, you take back control of how you feel, and when you control the meaning, stress dissolves. You stop seeing life as something happening to you and start seeing it as happening for you. That one shift flips everything. That's the difference between anxiety and power, between burnout and breakthrough, between running from your life and rising inside it. And this isn't just mind. Set fluff, this is psychology. Your brain is wired to find meaning. If you don't choose the meaning, it will assign one for you. Usually negative, usually disempowering, unless you interrupt that loop. Unless you decide in the middle of the chaos to ask a better question. What else could this mean? What's the opportunity here? What am I being prepared for? How is this shaping me? That's where the game changes. That's when you start using life instead of being used by it. The external world doesn't have to change for your internal world to shift. The stress ends the moment you reclaim the power to assign meaning. And when you attach a new meaning to any situation, one that empowers you, drives you, strengthens you, the emotion attached to that moment transforms along with it. Stress can't survive in a mind that's trained to find purpose inside pressure, or strength inside struggle, or clarity inside the mess. Clarity creates power. When you're stressed, overwhelmed, anxious, it's rarely because you have too much to do. It's because you're not clear on what truly matters, you're not sure what the target is, You're swinging blindly, checking boxes, answering texts, attending meetings, putting out fires, and wondering why you feel drained by the end of the day. The truth is, your brain doesn't get tired from action. It gets tired from confusion. You don't need more time in the day. You need to eliminate the fog, because the moment you get crystal clear on your outcome, your stress starts to fall apart. Most people live in reaction mode. They start the day with their inbox, their phone, the noise, and they let other people's priorities dictate their focus. They confuse movement with achievement. But running faster in the wrong direction doesn't get you where you want to go. It just gets you more exhausted. Clarity cuts through that. Clarity is knowing exactly what you want, why you want it, and what the next step is. And once you lock into that target, your energy aligns, your decisions sharpen, and your stress begins to fade. Not because the pressure disappeared, but because your mind now has a mission, and this isn't just theory. It's how the most effective people operate. They don't start their day with a task list. They start it with a vision. They don't wake up asking, "What do I need to do today?" They ask, "What result must I create?" That shift alone breaks the pattern of overwhelm. Because instead of focusing on 10 little things that drain you, you focus on one big thing that drives you. Clarity simplifies everything. It filters out the noise. It tells you what to say no to. It gives you permission to stop doing what doesn't move the needle. When you're clear, you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop overthinking. You stop starting and stopping. You commit. You execute. You move with direction. And when your brain knows exactly what you're after and exactly why it matters, you don't burn out. You burn through. You cut through resistance. You bypass drama. You focus on what actually matters, and suddenly the weight you were carrying starts to lift. Not because the work changed, but because your relationship to it did. Clarity gives you access to your strength, your certainty, your leadership. It silences stress and amplifies purpose. RPM is not a to-do list, it's a results system. Most people live buried under a mountain of tasks that don't move them forward. They confuse being busy with being productive. They check boxes, run errands, reply to messages, handle little fires all day, and still go to bed feeling like they didn't actually accomplish anything meaningful. That's because they're managing movement, not progress. They're stuck in the loop of doing instead of focusing on creating. RPM breaks that loop. It forces your brain to shift from task-oriented thinking to outcome-driven execution. It's not about what needs to get done. It's about what you want to achieve, why it matters, and how to make it happen efficiently and powerfully. The first thing RPM does is strip away the clutter. You stop asking, "What do I need to do?" and start asking, "What result do I want to create?" That simple change transforms your focus. It turns daily actions into intentional building blocks toward your vision. The moment you define the result, everything else becomes a matter of alignment. No more guessing. No more wandering, just a straight line from where you are to where you want to go. Then comes the purpose, and this is where the energy comes from. When you attach meaning to your result, when it's not just a task, but a mission, your drive multiplies. Suddenly, it's not just about writing an email, making a call, completing a report. It's about the impact behind it, the people it serves, the future it builds. Purpose transforms effort into firepower. It replaces procrastination with urgency and overwhelm with meaning. Purpose turns "I have to" into "I get to." Finally, RPM channels that focus and emotion into a massive action plan. Not a laundry list of tasks, but a focused set of steps that lead directly to the result. It forces your brain to work smarter, not harder. Instead of 10 scattered tasks, you identify 3 or 4 power moves that truly create momentum. The action plan becomes your path, not your prison. You're not tied to doing more. You're committed to doing what matters most. This system eliminates decision fatigue. It gives you structure without stress. You wake up knowing your target, knowing your fuel, and knowing your next move. That's what ends the cycle of burnout and puts you back in command of your life. Purpose kills procrastination. When you're not connected to a deep emotional reason behind what you're doing, every task feels heavy. You hesitate, you delay, you scroll, you distract yourself, you tell yourself you'll do it later. But the truth is, it's not about laziness, it's about disconnect. You haven't anchored that action to something that actually matters to you. Without purpose, your brain only sees effort. It only sees discomfort. It resists, but when you attach a strong enough why to your outcome, the resistance fades. Suddenly, you're not just working on a project. You're building your future. You're not just going to the gym. You're building strength to lead, to protect, to show up with energy. Purpose transforms action from a burden into a mission. Most people procrastinate not because they're incapable, but because they're uninspired. They haven't dug deep enough to find the emotional fuel that drives commitment. They're chasing goals they think they should pursue instead of goals that are aligned with their values, their vision, their hunger. That's the real work. It's not just setting goals, it's locking into why they matter to you. When your why is strong enough, you don't need more motivation, you don't need someone to push you, you're pulled by something deeper, you're pulled by identity, by contribution, by legacy. Purpose clarifies priorities. It helps you instantly separate the urgent from the important. It keeps you grounded when things get hard, because they will get hard. There will be days when the work feels too heavy, when the results take too long, when the feedback stings. But if you're driven by purpose, you keep showing up. You push through, not out of pressure, but out of principle. Purpose makes pain meaningful. It gives your discomfort a direction, and the best part is, you don't have to find your purpose in some giant, dramatic event. It's already in you. It's in your story, in your struggles, in the things that move you emotionally, in the moments when you felt most alive. All you have to do is connect what you're doing right now to something that truly matters. That connection flips the switch. That connection takes a routine task and turns it into a mission. You stop asking, "Do I feel like it?" and start declaring, "This must happen." That mindset ends hesitation. That mindset turns resistance into readiness. That mindset turns a scattered life into a focused life. Stress, lives in reaction, freedom, lives in intention. Most people spend their entire day in reaction mode. They wake up and immediately check their phone, let their inbox control their focus, let other people's demands dictate their priorities. From the moment they open their eyes, they are responding to life instead of leading it. They bounce from task to task, call to call, text to text, living in a constant state of mental defense, and that's where stress breeds, in the unknown, in the urgency, in the feeling that you're always one step behind. Reaction is survival, intention is creation. The gap between those two is the difference between a life you manage and a life you design. When you're reactive, your nervous system is always firing. You're running on adrenaline. Every interruption feels like an emergency. Every problem feels like a threat. And over time, that chronic state of fight or flight burns you out. It clouds your judgment. It steals your creativity. You're too busy reacting to think clearly, too overwhelmed to pause, too distracted to remember what actually matters. But when you shift from reaction to intention, everything changes. You no longer start your day asking, "What do I have to do?" You start asking, "What do I want to create?" Intention gives you back your power. It allows you to focus your energy on what moves the needle. It puts you in control of your time, your thoughts, and your emotional state. It doesn't mean you ignore problems. It means you approach them with clarity instead of chaos. You choose your response instead of defaulting to stress, and that choice, that split-second shift, is where freedom begins. You can't always control what happens around you, but you can absolutely control how you respond to it. And that's where your real strength lies. Living with intention means waking up with a plan, not just a schedule. It means aligning your actions with your outcomes. It means eliminating the noise, shutting out distractions, and creating space for what actually matters. You don't wait for peace to show up. You build it through clarity. You don't wait for the day to slow down. You decide how it begins. You become proactive, strategic, grounded. You go from feeling pulled in every direction to pulling your life in the direction you've chosen. That shift doesn't just reduce stress. It dismantles it at the source. Chunking equals crushing overwhelm. Most people feel stress not because their life is too full, but because their thinking is too scattered. They look at a long list of disconnected tasks and their brain goes into panic mode. Everything feels urgent, everything feels massive. They try to tackle it all at once and nothing gets done. The key is not to do more, it's to simplify. And that's where chunking comes in. Chunking means grouping your tasks, your goals, your ideas into bigger categories that are driven by outcomes. Instead of looking at 25 small things you need to do, you break them down into 2 or 3 core results you're after. You go from drowning in details to focusing on direction. Your brain loves simplicity. It thrives when it can see a clear outcome and a few steps to get there. But if you try to hold too many pieces at once, it shuts down. That's why people procrastinate. That's why they feel paralyzed, not because they can't do the work, but because the work isn't organized in a way that makes sense to their nervous system. Chunking calms the system. It gives your brain a roadmap. Instead of reacting to each little task, you start responding to a purpose. Let's say you've got 10 different things you need to do for work: emails, calls, presentations, updates. Instead of viewing them as 10 separate stress points, chunk them into one result. Move the project forward. Now your brain isn't scrambling to jump from tab to tab, it's locked in on one mission. And from that space, clarity returns. Energy returns, execution returns, the pressure drops because the path is now visible. You can chunk by outcome, you can chunk by time, you can chunk by purpose. You can even chunk emotionally, deciding that everything you're doing in this hour is about growth or connection or building momentum. It creates rhythm, it creates structure, and it gives you a sense of progress, which is the antidote to overwhelm. Because when your brain knows what matters, it stops fixating on everything that doesn't. You regain control, you filter faster, you take bigger actions because you've broken down the mental clutter into clear, actionable direction. That's how high performers stay calm under pressure. They don't see more, they see less, and they see it more clearly.